Good day everyone, it is CG Inferno here with another review. So today's review is for the new DLC that came out for Tales of Arise called Beyond the Dawn. It's I'll say more of an epilogue DLC, basically to give us an insight like what's been happening like a year after what the original story was, or the ending for that one really is. It's a pretty decent size length DLC, but obviously the price point is what people are kind of a bit iffy on. So with this review, I'm mainly going to be talking about the story a bit, the gameplay, and like if you should buy the DLC or not, or if it's basically if it's worth it or not at this point. So yeah, it'll be like a short review, not too long, not too short, but yeah, it should be like a decent size length. But yeah, instead of me rambling, let's just get right into it. So, the story of the Beyond the Dawn DLC is set 1 year after the events of the main game, where the gang are still helping the citizens, so the Renans and Dunnans, come to terms with living each other after the events of the first game, where they basically took care of Lenegis and Lenegis is no more. And this is like proven to be quite challenging. While doing this, they are also sealing up the Muslims, which you would see throughout the game in this DLC. I'll say see, there's like only 2 of them pretty much, but you might have seen them in the original game as well. So essentially they're going around sealing these to basically stop like any threats and stuff from coming to the cities. Now while doing this, they do come across a young girl who is named Nazimil, which you don't really find out straight away, but essentially she's being chased by some citizens because she's a half-breed. So in the story it basically says that she's half Danan, half Renan, and her father was a one of the lords. But I won't say which lord anyway, but you'll find out earlier on in the game. Now luckily for her, Alfin doesn't agree to it and helps her out, so essentially the citizens just back off pretty much. And then with that decided, they say that she should come with them, and then they decide to meet up with the rest of the team members that you've known throughout the main game, all to pretty much help Nazimil just integrate into the society. But it was obviously provided to be quite the challenge. And during the story, you kind of find out why she's not really wanted everywhere. It's kind of a big spoiler, so I wouldn't really say it, but you'll see it within a few hours of playing in the game. Now, as I said earlier, for spoiler purposes, I won't dive too deep into the story, mainly because I still want people to actually play it if they're actually going to play it. But honestly, throughout the story, there are some interesting parts and interesting moments that I actually enjoyed, and I was like, yo, this is actually quite nice. But overall, I would say the story in itself as a whole was decent at best. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't too great either. But I think compared to the second half of Arise, I think it's done better to an extent. I didn't really hate the second half, but I could definitely see like the issues that happened within that one and why people don't really like it. But yeah, overall story was decent at best, for me at least. Other people might be different. Now, as for the side content in the game, there are a lot of side quests in the game not obviously the game, the DLC I should say. But a lot of these are essentially fetch quests and go and beat up certain enemies quests. So sometimes they'll be like, go get this item. Other times like, go and defeat this X amount of enemies in this area. So literally you're going to be doing that a lot. So it's just a lot of running back and forth between certain areas and stuff, which honestly, I kind of felt a bit cheated on. I kind of thought these quests would be a bit more interesting. There's also restoration quests, which you would have probably seen from the trailer that they put out like a couple of weeks ago, where essentially if you do these quests, the towns and stuff that you visit in this DLC slightly change, so they become more, I'm not saying modernized, but they become more inhabitable in a sense. But again, with these types of restoration quests, you're essentially just fetching items 9 times out of 10. Now, to add to the side quests, there are also character quests as well in the game. So these character quests, essentially, each of the members in the team have 2 quests that you can do, which essentially gives you an item where it can buff your boost attack. So essentially, the only change to combat in this game is your boost attacks, pretty much. So I would say that they do a bit more damage and they have a bit of wider effect range as well for some of the boost attacks as well. which is obviously quite nice, but you know, you kind of expected a bit more when it came to this DLC. I will not lie about that, but I will discuss that in the next point soon. And one final point on the side quest, that there are also EX quests which you obtain when you buy the DLC. So essentially these quests are not actually in the DLC in itself. They're like an extra add-on to an extent, but it's free from what I remember seeing. So this type of quest is basically Alphen gathering information about how a wedding should be. So from like the food, the venue, all of that stuff, because we all know in the end they do get married, but this is before all of that happens, which honestly I felt quite nice to do. You know, it gave like a different perspective on Alphen as a character and other characters as well in the party as well. It was a nice change of pace. So if you do have it, I would say just do it. It's actually quite nice to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the side content in the game. Now for the length of the DLC, Bandai did say that the game was around 20 hours or so, and we all know when companies say it's X amount of hours, you should really cut that down by like 5 to 10 hours at least in this case. So for me, when I was done with the DLC, I essentially done 90% of the side quest. Literally, I think I had probably like another 4 or 5 left before I said, you know, let me just finish the game, because it was getting quite late for me when I was playing it. But I finished it under 16 hours. But if you do not do any of the side quests in the game and you just go straight for the story, which is more than possible, especially if you're playing like normal mode or easy mode or whatever, then you can finish this DLC under 10 hours. If anything, I could say you could probably finish it under 7 hours, because it's really short. It's not too long, and you can easily tell by the trophies as well in the game. Like there's like 5 story trophies pretty much. So yeah, that whole thing about the DLC being 20 hours or more, well, that's quite a stretch. So I could see why people might be a bit pissed off about it. Even me, I was kind of annoyed, because a lot of the time that they said it was 20 hours or so is mainly because of all the side content in the game, and those side stories and stuff, they don't really add too much except for like the character quest and the EX ones. Now, the gameplay in Beyond the Dawn DLC is still the same from the original game. The game starts you off at a decent level, and depending on the main game save file that you have had or don't have, you can get a variety of bonuses. So for me, because I originally played on PC but I wanted to play the DLC early, I had to go and get the DLC on PS5. So essentially the only bonus I got was like 1000 SP and like a bit of money. But say for example, you've maxed out all your characters to level 100 and you've done everything in the main game, you'll get all the bonuses plus a new set of weapons, which are quite nice from what I've seen overall. But yeah, you get quite a bit, which will help you a lot when it comes to like SP for not even new skills, to regain the skills that you've learned in the main game in this DLC. What's nice about this DLC is that it does give you a slight tutorial at the beginning of the game on how to do certain stuff again, which was good for me, mainly because I have not played this game in like 2 years, ever since I finished it like 100%. So that was a nice feature to add into, honestly. But yeah, as I said, you're gonna have to learn all your moves and stuff again, which is quite annoying. But if you've got like 100% safe, I think you can literally get like the majority of moves again. But do remember that some moves are only learned when you use certain moves a certain amount of times as well. So yeah, you have to add that into that factor as well. Now, a lot of the enemies in the game you would have seen already from the main game, which is to be expected. Most of the bosses that you've seen as well before, but now they have like more or less a different color palette. They don't really have no new moves or anything as well. Gigants are also back in the DLC, and you'll find them throughout the maps you can go to in the game. Crafting and cooking is also there. Thankfully, the recipes from the main game are all there, so it makes it a bit easier for you to like make the food you want without having to go and search for new recipes or do like side stories to go and get new recipes. Although some of the side content in this game, you actually do get some new recipes, but there's only like, I think 2 or 3 of them pretty much, maybe a bit, basically like something, not too many new recipes, which honestly is to be expected from this type of DLC. Now for the new dungeons in the game, there are only like what, 3, 4 at most. I think it's 3 if I'm counting it correctly, which is quite disappointing, honestly, because the way they were talking about this DLC, they're saying, oh, you know, there'll be like new dungeons, I was thinking, okay, there might probably be like 5, 6 or something around that much or something. But yeah, that was not the case in this one. 2 of the dungeons essentially are like the same. You'll see them like quite early on in the game. Then you have the final dungeon as well, which is quite long, especially if you want to explore everything in it. But if you do just want to run and gun for the final boss, then literally you don't need to do the whole unlocking the 6 seals around the one specific door, which if you do, you actually go and get the devil arms in the game, which is quite funny because I was kind of like, huh, why is it back in the DLC? So yeah, the devil arms are back in the game, or fell arms as some people call it. And we all know how that works. Essentially, you just have to keep using it, and then the stats will go up and up and up. But for this DLC, I honestly don't think it was needed because I don't see many people grinding this DLC because there's really not much to grind for. You do also have the arena training ground, which was in the original game, so you can get some new items from there as well. Or I wouldn't say new, some items to help you in the game as well. I didn't really do that because I just didn't see the need to at all, honestly. But yeah, dungeons, I was pretty disappointed that there's only like literally 3 of them in the game. I thought there would have been way more. Now, the bosses, having a big HP sponge is probably not helping this DLC's case as well. This was kind of an issue in the main game as well, but considering all the stuff that you can craft and everything, a lot of those bosses can just go down in an instant pretty much. In this game, that can be done as well, but if you really want to go out of your way to grind for these specific materials and stuff and craft them, then yeah, you can do that and the bosses won't be too much of an issue. But me, I didn't really grind or anything. I did get a fair amount of items. I did craft a bit. I did craft like the highest, the highest weapon you can get in the game. Although to be fair, money seemed to be quite tight in the game as well, so I couldn't get it for every character. But yeah, I got it for like the majority of the characters, and yeah, it didn't make too much of a difference. But yeah, most of these bosses, especially if you're playing on hard or even chaos mode, it does take quite a bit of time. Now obviously you can go and use the relics, I think it's called, I can't remember, but essentially there is one that allows you to deal more damage, but you also take more damage as well, which I do remember using quite a bit in the main game, but for this DLC I didn't use it. But yeah, playing on hard or chaos or even like moderate as well, you'll see that some of the bosses do take some time. And yeah, after a while I just dropped it to normal because I said I really don't want to be in a boss fight for like an extra 5 to 10 minutes pretty much. Now, the final dungeon in itself was honestly okay at best. Design-wise, as in like the visuals and everything, it was really nice. I liked what they done with it. I liked the atmosphere as well. But overall, the layout of the dungeon, I kind of felt was just like, okay, that's it, you know? And also to add to it, the bosses in the final dungeon were kind of lazy as well. I say this mainly because you fight one boss repetitive in that dungeon, which for story reason I won't say, but maybe some people can easily guess. But that same boss can actually go and summon like another boss as well. So you have that boss to beat, which is like on normal mode. I think they have 200k plus HP, which is not too bad honestly. And then you have another boss summon that has like similar health as well. So it's just like, why are you doing this to me, you know? And if you're playing on harder modes, it's just even worse. But yeah, you do that a bit, and then even in the final one, they summon, instead of 1, they summon 2. So yeah, that's even more time there as well. But yeah, I felt that could have been way better. But yeah, I don't know, man. That final dungeon, apart from looking nice, I felt it's just like one long dungeon that didn't really need to be that long, especially if there's like no cool hidden secrets and stuff in there. I mean, there is technically the door with the 6 seals, which is not hard to do, but apart from that, there's like no other stuff in there as well. So yeah, final dungeon was okay, to basically put it into like one sentence pretty much. And now we've come to the question that everyone wants to know: is the DLC worth it? Essentially my final thoughts of this whole thing before I wrap up the video. Now, overall, I was somewhat okay with the DLC, but for the price, I felt they could have added a lot more value to the DLC. Considering that this was made 2 years after the original release, I'm unsure if this was even planned at all, if they just wanted to get some funds for their next project. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a nice epilogue to add to the main story, but if this DLC didn't come out, I wouldn't even really be mad, because the ending of Arise was good enough for me, you know, like it was like, okay, this story is like done and dusted pretty much, which again, I don't know, man, it's a weird one, because from the lack of new enemies, new arts, new mystic arts, like the only new mystic arts is from the final boss. There's 2 of them, right? And you'll see them because like they're scripted pretty much. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. Like no new arts, no mystic art. We've had this in previous Tales entries as well, where you have like a whole new world. Like for the Graces, you had a whole new world to explore. New mystic arts, you had like a new gameplay function as well. I think it's sort of got the Excel mode or something like that, which was really nice. So it's shown that they can do it, but I guess for just this DLC, they're just like, no, we don't really want to do it, which is quite a shame, because I think this would have helped Arise's case, because this game has been like mixed for the community for valid reasons as well, honestly. And this mainly comes from the second half of the main game, which I'll be honest, it could have been better, but I wouldn't really get into that discussion. This is mainly about the DLC. But yeah, honestly, if you've loved the original game, you'll probably love the DLC and you wouldn't really have any issues about it. But if you're like was hesitant about the main game, then this DLC, I would honestly just say wait for a sale. Honestly, now as I say that, yeah. Do I recommend this DLC? Yes, but for the price that is at, no. I would say wait for a sale, or buy like a key or something from it where you can get slightly cheaper. But yeah, there's no rush to play this DLC because it's pretty short. There's not much added new stuff into it. The new character herself, she's pretty nice. You can see she's gone through a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's definitely one to keep out for during the story. But yeah, as I said, getting the DLC at this price, yeah, I would just say wait for a sale. Honestly, overall, I would give this DLC probably like 6.57 at best out of 10. But yeah, I have the full game up there if you want to watch it or whatnot. I streamed the whole thing of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this review. I didn't want it to be too long or too short anyway. Just wanted to get my thoughts out there, along with like some of the stuff that some people might be concerned about the DLC. But if you do have any questions and stuff, leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you on it. But yeah, that's it from me, and I'll see you guys next time.